The flashing blue lights in the rearview mirror didn't scare her. They annoyed her. But for Officer Declan Hale, those lights were a scepter of absolute power. He saw a battered sedan, a suspect profile, and a woman he thought he could break for sport. He didn't see the Glock 19 tucked in her waistband, the federal badge in the glove box, or the sealed indictment warrant sitting on the passenger seat with his own chief's name on it. What started as a power trip on a lonely Louisiana highway would spiral into a national scandal, proving that sometimes the person you step on is the one standing on the trapdoor to your own hell. This is the story of how a corrupt badge met the wrong woman. The humidity in Pine Creek, Louisiana, was thick enough to chew on. It clung to the windshield of Serena Voss's nondescript rust bucket Chevrolet Malibu. To the casual observer, Serena looked like just another local struggling to make ends meet. She wore a faded gray hoodie, hair tied back in a messy bun, and exhausted eyes that suggested a double shift at a diner. That was the point. Serena Voss was a senior special agent with the FBI's Public Corruption Task Force based out of New Orleans. She wasn't just passing through Pine Creek, she had spent months building a RICO case against the local precinct, but today she wasn't Agent Voss. She was just Serena, driving a car registered to a ghost entity, ensuring her cover remained airtight until the raid. She checked her speedometer, 42 in a 45 zone. Perfect. Then the lights flared. A black and white Dodge Charger surged from behind a billboard, riding her bumper so close she could see the officer's sunglasses reflecting the sun. Serena sighed, her grip tightening on the steering wheel, not out of fear, but out of frustration. "Not today," she whispered to the empty car. "Please, not today." She signaled, slowed down gradually, and pulled onto the gravel shoulder of Highway 9. The cruiser parked at an aggressive angle, nose jutting out into traffic, a tactic designed to intimidate. Inside the cruiser, Officer Declan Hale killed the siren but left the lights dancing. He was young, with a gym-sculpted chest that strained against his uniform and a haircut that was high, tight, and severe. He checked the computer. The Malibu's plates came back. Record not found. Hale smirked. To him, that didn't mean federal undercover vehicle. It meant unregistered. It meant stolen. It meant he had a plaything for the next few minutes. "Looks like we got a ghost, Mitch," Hale muttered to the empty seat beside him. He was riding solo today, but he liked to talk to himself like he was starring in his own reality show. He adjusted his body cam, angling it slightly downward. He knew the tricks. If the lens was partly obscured by his arm, the footage would be inconclusive later. He stepped out into the oppressive heat. He didn't put his hat on. He wanted her to see his eyes. He rested his hand on the grip of his service weapon, a heavy Sig Sauer, and approached the passenger side first, a classic tactic to throw the driver off balance. Serena watched him in the side mirror. She saw the hand on the gun. She saw the swagger. She knew the type. She had arrested a dozen men just like him, men who peaked in high school and used the badge to chase that fading high. She rolled down the window, keeping her hands clearly visible at the 10 and 2 positions on the wheel. "Good afternoon, officer," Serena said, her voice calm and neutral. Hale didn't answer immediately. He leaned down, chewing gum loudly, and stared at her through his mirrored Oakleys. He took a long, exaggerated look around the interior of the car. He saw the fast food wrappers on the floor, part of her cover, and the duffel bag in the back seat. "License and registration," Hale finally said. No greeting, no explanation for the stop. "Can I ask why I was pulled over, officer?" Serena asked politely. Hale's jaw tightened. He hated questions. Questions were defiance. "I asked for your license and registration. Do not make me ask a third time." Serena moved slowly. "My license is in my belt bag. I'm going to reach for it now." "Don't reach for anything," Hale barked, his hand snapping the retention strap off his holster. "Keep your hands on the wheel." Serena froze. She calculated the distance. She calculated the threat level. This guy was jumpy. A jumpy cop with an ego was the most dangerous thing on the street. Her calmness felt like an insult. It felt like she thought she was better than him. "Step out of the vehicle," Hale commanded. For a traffic stop, Serena countered, eyebrow raised. I haven't committed an infraction. I smell marijuana, Hale lied smoothly. It was the oldest trick in the book, unverifiable probable cause on a platter. Step out of the vehicle now. Serena closed her eyes for a split second. The smell of marijuana. She hadn't smoked a day in her life, and the car was government issued, but arguing would only escalate him. She needed to de-escalate, identify herself, and end this before it compromised the operation. Okay, Serena said. I'm stepping out. She unbuckled. She opened the door. As she rose to her full height, she looked Declan Hale in the eye. She was 5'9", athletic, and held herself with a rigid discipline that should have tipped him off. But Hale was too busy looking at her worn-out sneakers and the fray on her hoodie. Turn around, Hale said, spinning his finger. Hands on the hood. Spread your legs. Officer, before we go any further, Serena said firmly, you need to know that I am a federal... Shut your mouth. Hale slammed his hand onto her shoulder, shoving her forward against the hot metal of the car. I didn't ask for your life story. I told you to spread them. The heat of the car hood burned her palms. Serena's training screamed at her to disarm him. She could do it in 3 moves, but the discipline of the Bureau held her back. If she fought a uniformed officer, even a crooked one, the media narrative would be messy. She had to take the hit. You are making a mistake, Serena said, her face pressed against the windshield wiper. Check my credentials. They are in the glove box. I'm checking your pockets, Hale sneered. He began a pat-down that was rougher than necessary, his hands lingering in places that made Serena's skin crawl. He pulled out her wallet. He flipped it open. He saw the driver's license. Serena Voss. No address listed. He missed the badge. She hadn't put it in the wallet. It was in the separate leather credentials case in the glove box. Serena Voss, Hale read aloud, mocking the name. Sounds like a stripper name. You work the clubs in New Orleans, Serena? I work for the United States government, she said through gritted teeth. Hale laughed, a loud, barking laugh. Yeah, and I'm the King of England. What do you do? Clean the toilets at the post office? That makes you a federal employee, right? He kicked her ankles apart wider. Stay there. I'm running you for warrants. Hale retreated to his cruiser, but he didn't close the door. He wanted her to hear him. He grabbed his radio mic, speaking loudly enough for the sound to carry over the humid air. Dispatch, this is Unit 4 Alpha. I've got a female suspect, roughly 30, uncooperative, possible narcotics, requesting backup for a vehicle search. He waited for the crackle of the response. The dispatcher, a woman named Nadia, who had been covering for Pine Creek's boys for years, replied, Copy, 4 Alpha. Unit 4 Bravo is en route. Hale smiled. 4 Bravo was Sergeant Ronan. Ronan loved a good show. Inside the cruiser, Hale ran Serena's name through NCIC, National Crime Information Center. The screen loaded, no record found, restricted access. Level 5 clearance required. Hale frowned. Usually it said no warrant or listed priors. Restricted access was weird, but Hale wasn't a deep thinker. He interpreted it as a system glitch or a sealed juvenile record. He convinced himself she was someone who had been in the system so long the files were messed up. He walked back to Serena, who was still leaning against the car, sweat trickling down her temple. The sun was brutal now. System's acting up, Hale said, twirling his handcuffs. Which means you're probably hiding something good. You got a record, Serena? You got a warrant out of state? Is that why you're shaking? I'm not shaking, Serena said. She turned her head slightly. Officer, my credentials are in the glove compartment. Open the black leather case. It will explain the restricted file. I told you not to speak, Hale said loudly. You don't give orders here, I do. He grabbed her left wrist and twisted it behind her back, cranking it upward until the shoulder joint screamed. You're resisting, Hale stated calmly. I'm not resisting, Serena gasped, the pain sharp. I'm standing still. Stop fighting me, Hale yelled for the benefit of the body cam audio. He swept her legs, kicking her right calf so hard she collapsed to her knees in the gravel. The rocks dug into her skin through her jeans. "Cuffing suspect!" Hale shouted. He ratcheted the cuffs onto her wrists. Tight. Too tight. The metal bit into the ulna bone. He grabbed her by the chain of the handcuffs, hauling her to her feet like a sack of potatoes. "You're going for a ride, sweetheart," Hale whispered in her ear. "Disorderly conduct, resisting arrest, and whatever drugs I find in that heap of junk." At that moment, a second cruiser roared onto the scene, gravel spraying as it skidded to a halt. Sergeant Ronan stepped out, hitching up his belt. "What you got, Declan?" Ronan called out. "Uppity one," Hale replied, shoving Serena toward the back seat of his Charger. "Claims she works for the government. Says she's a Fed." Ronan let out a wheezing laugh. He walked over to Serena, looking her up and down with open disdain. "Her a Fed? Yeah, and my ex-wife is Mother Teresa. She looks like she's been sleeping in that car." "My badge," Serena said, her voice dropping to a dangerous, icy low, "is in the glove box. If you arrest me, you are kidnapping a federal agent. Think very carefully about your next move, Sergeant." Ronan paused. There was something in her tone. It wasn't the desperate pleading of a junkie. It was the command of a superior officer. He looked at Hale. "Did you check the car?" "Not yet," Hale said. "I wanted to secure the threat first." "Check it," Ronan muttered. "Just in case she's got a gun." Hale rolled his eyes. "You're letting her get to you. Look at her. She's nobody." "Just check it." Hale huffed and walked over to the Malibu. He yanked the passenger door open. He rummaged through the fast food bags, tossing them onto the roadside. He opened the center console. Nothing but napkins and a spare magazine for a pistol. Hale froze. A spare magazine, 9mm, hollow points, government issue. He looked back at Serena. She was staring straight at him, her expression unreadable. He reached for the glove box. He popped the latch. Inside, sitting on top of the owner's manual, was a leather wallet with a gold embossment, the seal of the Department of Justice. Hale picked it up. It felt heavy. He flipped it open. The gold badge gleamed in the sunlight. Federal Bureau of Investigation, Special Agent Serena Voss. Beside the badge was a photo ID card. The face on the card was the same as the woman currently handcuffed in the back of his car. Hale's stomach dropped. It felt like he had swallowed a stone. He stared at the badge, then back at Ronan. "Well?" Ronan asked. Hale swallowed hard. He couldn't admit he messed up. Not now, not after he'd already roughed her up. If he admitted she was an agent now, he was done. He'd be fired, sued, maybe jailed. Panic set in. But then a darker, more corrupt instinct took over. The instinct of self-preservation that had kept the Pine Creek PD running for years. He snapped the badge case shut and shoved it into his own pocket. "Nothing," Hale lied, his voice cracking slightly before he steadied it. "Just trash. No ID, no badge. She's lying." Ronan squinted. "You sure?" "I'm sure," Hale said, turning back to the car with a newfound desperation. "She's just a crazy junkie with a gun magazine. Probably stole it. We're taking her in." Hale walked back to Serena. He opened the rear door and leaned in, his face inches from hers. "I checked," he whispered. "No badge, just a liar." Serena's eyes widened. She realized instantly what he had done. He wasn't just a bully. He was stupid. And he had just crossed the line from misconduct to a felony. "You have the badge in your pocket," Serena said. "I saw you put it there." "I don't know what you're talking about," Hale said loudly. "Stop making things up." He slammed the door, sealing her inside the cage. "Tow the car," Hale ordered Ronan. "Impound it. Search it piece by piece at the lot. If you find anything interesting, lose it." Ronan nodded slowly, sensing the shift in Hale's demeanor, but going along with the code, the blue wall of silence. As Hale climbed into the driver's seat, Serena leaned her head back against the hard plastic seat. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. "You just buried yourself, Officer Hale," she thought, "and I'm going to be the one to shovel the dirt." The back of the Dodge Charger smelled of vomit and industrial cleaner, a scent designed to mask the misery of the hundreds of people who had been dragged to jail in this seat before. Serena Voss sat awkwardly, her hands numb from the over-tightened steel cuffs, her shoulder throbbing where Officer Hale had wrenched it. Most people in her position would be crying. They would be begging Officer Declan Hale to turn the car around, to listen to reason. But Serena was counting. She was memorizing the turns, the time elapsed, and the radio codes Hale was muttering. Left on Oak Street, right on Main, speed 55 and a 30. He's driving recklessly. Hale looked in the rearview mirror, his eyes manic. The adrenaline of the arrest was fading, replaced by the cold, creeping dread of what he had in his pocket. He had a federal agent's badge in his pants. If he was caught with it, it was years in prison minimum. But if he admitted to it now, he was admitting to a false arrest, excessive force, and kidnapping. He had to double down. It was the only way. "You're quiet back there," Hale taunted, turning up the radio to drown out the silence. "Usually you people are screaming by now." "You people," Serena repeated, her voice calm but cutting. "Criminals," Hale corrected quickly, though the slur hung in the air. "Liars. People who think a fake piece of tin makes them untouchable." He slammed on the brakes as they pulled into the rear sally port of the Pine Creek Police Department. The electronic gate rattled open slowly. This was a fortress of concrete and brick, built in the 70s and never updated. It was a place where cameras malfunctioned conveniently and complaints disappeared into shredders. Hale hauled Serena out of the car. He didn't guide her. He yanked her. She stumbled, her sneakers scuffing on the oil-stained concrete. "Walk!" he shouted, shoving her toward the steel door. Inside, the booking area was a flurry of activity. 2 other officers were processing a drunk driver, laughing as the man struggled to stand. The dispatcher, Nadia, sat behind a high-glass partition, eating a sandwich. "Got a fresh one, Declan?" Nadia asked, not looking up. Resisting, disorderly, possession, and impersonating a peace officer, Hale listed off, his voice booming. He wanted everyone to hear. He needed witnesses to his version of the story. He shoved Serena toward the booking counter. "Empty your pockets." "I can't," Serena said, lifting her cuffed hands. Hale scoffed. He unlocked one cuff, then grabbed her arm and twisted it again. "Don't try anything." Serena began to empty her pockets, a crumpled receipt, a hair tie. Hale snatched them away. "Take off the hoodie," Hale ordered. "I have a t-shirt underneath," Serena said, "but it's freezing in here." "I said take it off. We check for tattoos, gang affiliation." Serena complied slowly. She pulled the gray hoodie over her head. Underneath, she wore a plain black tactical t-shirt. It was tight, showing the definition of her arms built by years of Quantico training and daily gym sessions. One of the other officers, a lanky man named Deputy Vance, looked over. "She looks fit for a junkie, Declan." "She's a runner," Hale dismissed. "Probably runs drugs across state lines. Look at her eyes. She's high right now." Serena stared directly at the camera mounted in the corner of the room. She knew the red light meant it was recording. "My name is Special Agent Serena Voss," she stated clearly and loudly, addressing the camera. "I'm being held against my will by Officer Declan Hale of the Pine Creek Police Department. He has stolen my credentials, which are currently in his right front pocket. I'm requesting immediate contact with the New Orleans field office." The room went silent. Nadia stopped chewing. Deputy Vance looked at Hale. Hale's face turned a violent shade of red. He lunged at Serena, slamming her chest first into the concrete counter. "Shut up," he screamed. "She's hallucinating. I told you she's on something." He looked at Vance. "Help me get her to the holding cell. She's a danger to herself." "Don't we need to print her mugshot?" Vance asked, confused. "Later," Hale barked. "She's combative. Cooling off period. Now." Hale and Vance dragged Serena down a narrow hallway lined with heavy steel doors. They stopped at cell 4. Hale unlocked it and threw the door open. "Get in," he spat. He pushed her inside. Serena stumbled but caught her balance, spinning around to face him. "This is the last mistake you'll ever make, Hale," she said softly. Hale slammed the door shut. The heavy clank of the lock echoed like a gunshot. He peered through the small, reinforced glass window. "Nobody's coming for you," he whispered. "You're just a number now." He turned and walked away, his heart hammering against his ribs. He needed to see the chief immediately. Chief of Police Harlan Quill was a man who believed in order, but not necessarily the law. He sat in his office on the second floor, a room that smelled of cigar smoke and lemon polish. The walls were lined with awards from the Rotary Club and photos of him fishing with the mayor. He was reviewing the budget, specifically how to hide the missing money from the Asset Forfeiture Fund, when Declan Hale burst in, not bothering to knock. Quill looked up, his thick gray eyebrows knitting together. "Hale, you better have a fire behind you barging in here like that." Hale looked pale. He was sweating, and his hands were shaking. He closed the door and locked it. "Chief, we got a problem," Hale said, his voice trembling. "We?" Quill leaned back, the leather chair creaking. "I don't recall being on patrol with you today. What did you do?" Hale reached into his pocket. He pulled out the black leather case. He placed it on the mahogany desk. Quill stared at it. He recognized the seal. Every cop in America recognized that seal. He reached out and flipped it open. He read the text. He looked at the photo. Then he looked up at Hale, his eyes cold and hard. "Where did you get this?" Quill asked quietly. "Highway 9, Hale stammered. "Traffic stop. She didn't have it on her. I mean, she said she was a Fed, but she looked like trash. Chief, old car, hoodie, attitude. I thought she was lying. I cuffed her. I brought her in. And then you found this." "I found it after I cuffed her," Hale lied. "But Chief, she was resisting. She was aggressive. If I admit she's an agent now, I'm cooked. She'll sue the department. She'll have your job. My job." Quill stood up slowly. He walked to the window and looked out at the parking lot. He saw the tow truck dragging a beat-up Chevy Malibu into the impound yard. This wasn't just a lawsuit. Quill knew something Hale didn't. He knew the FBI had been sniffing around the parish for months. Rumors of a corruption probe, missing funds, protection rackets. If this woman was here, she wasn't on vacation. She was hunting. And Hale, the idiot, had just caught the hunter. Quill turned back to Hale. "Did anyone else see this badge?" "No," Hale said quickly. "Ronan was there, but he didn't see it. I told him it was empty." "And the camera, I angled it away." Quill let out a long sigh. He rubbed his temples. "You just handed them the key to the city, Declan. You arrested a federal agent on a RICO task force. Do you know what RICO is?" Hale shook his head dumbly. "It means they aren't just coming for you. They're coming for the whole department." Quill picked up the badge. He ran his thumb over the gold surface. He had a choice. He could release her, apologize, and hope she showed mercy. But he knew the feds. They didn't do mercy. If she walked out of that cell, she would return with a warrant and a SWAT team. They were already in the deep end. The only way out was to drown her. "She's dirty," Quill said suddenly. Hale blinked. "What?" "She's dirty," Quill repeated louder. "That badge is stolen, or she's a rogue agent. That's the story." "But she's not," Hale said. "She is, if we say she is." Quill slammed his fist on the desk. "Listen to me, you idiot." Quill unlocked his bottom desk drawer. He pulled out a small, clear plastic bag filled with white powder. It was cocaine confiscated from a dealer and never logged into evidence. He tossed the bag to Hale. "Get to the impound lot," Quill ordered. "Find her car. Plant this under the driver's seat. Deep. Make it look like she's been moving product." Hale stared at the bag. This was a felony. This was the point of no return. "Chief, do it!" Quill roared. "Or do you want to explain to the grand jury why you assaulted a federal officer?" "I can't save you from that, Declan, but I can save us if she's a drug trafficker hiding behind a badge." Hale grabbed the bag. His fear was replaced by a desperate resolve. He nodded. "Yes, sir." "And Hale," Quill added, his voice dropping to a sinister whisper. Delete the body cam footage. Hard delete. Corrupt the file. Yes, sir. Hale rushed out of the office. Quill sat back down. He picked up his phone and dialed the mayor. Preston, Quill said when the line connected, we might have a situation. I need you to call the parish prosecutor. Tell him we have a high-profile drug bust and we need to fast-track the arraignment tonight. Meanwhile, in cell 4, Serena Voss sat on the thin, moth-eaten mattress. She wasn't pacing. She wasn't yelling. She was meditating. She closed her eyes and visualized the timeline. She knew her team protocols. Every agent on an undercover assignment had a dead man switch. She was required to check in via a secure encrypted app on her phone every few hours. If she missed a check-in, her phone would automatically ping her GPS location to the Task Force Operations Center in New Orleans. Her phone was currently in Officer Hale's possession, likely tossed in an evidence bag or sitting on the dashboard of his cruiser. She had missed her check-in. That meant the clock was ticking. The yellow alert had already gone out. The analysts were currently pinging her device. Soon, it would upgrade to red alert. Serena smiled in the darkness of the cell. She listened to the sounds of the station. She heard boots hurrying down the hall. She heard the distant murmur of angry voices. They were panicking. Good. Panic made people sloppy. The cell door next to hers housed a man who had been singing a gospel song. Hey, Serena called out softly. Hey, neighbor. The singing stopped. Who's that? A rough voice asked. My name is Serena. I need a favor. I ain't got no cigarettes, lady. I don't need cigarettes, Serena said. I need you to remember something for me. Can you do that? Depends. What's it worth? If you remember this, I can get your charges dropped, Serena said with the confidence of someone who knew the U.S. attorney personally. The man laughed. Yeah, right. You in a cage just like me. I'm not like you, Serena said. I'm the one who's going to tear this place down. Just listen. At the time Officer Hale brought me in, he didn't book me. He didn't print me. He dragged me here. Did you hear that? I heard him yelling, the man admitted. Said you was high. I'm not high. I'm FBI, Serena said. Silence from the next cell, then a low whistle. Damn. For real? For real. When they come, and they are coming, you tell them exactly what you heard. You tell them Officer Hale was scared. I can do that, the man said. Name's Ronan. Nice to meet you, Ronan. Sit tight. The show's about to start. Outside at the impound lot behind the station, Declan Hale was sweating through his uniform. The sun was beginning to dip, casting long, jagged shadows across the rows of seized cars. He found the Malibu. He looked around. The lot was empty, save for a stray dog picking through a trash can. He put on a pair of latex gloves. He opened the driver's door. He pulled up the floor mat. He took a knife and made a small slit in the carpet lining, then shoved the bag of cocaine inside, tucking it deep so only a corner was visible if you looked hard. He stood up, wiping his forehead. It was done. He pulled out his radio. Dispatch, this is Hale. I'm at the impound conducting an inventory search of the suspect vehicle. I found something. It looks like a significant amount of narcotics. Class A. Nadia's voice crackled back. Copy that, Hale. Need a crime scene unit? Yeah, Hale said, his voice gaining confidence. Send 'em and tell the chief. We got her. He smirked. It was perfect. Who would believe a black woman in a beat-up car over a decorated police officer and a bag of coke? He locked the car and started walking back to the station. He felt lighter. He had won. But as he walked, he didn't notice the black drone hovering silently high above him, its high-resolution camera lens fixed directly on the Malibu. And he certainly didn't know that far away in a high-tech command center, a team of federal agents was watching the live feed on a large monitor. Special Agent in Charge Barrett Kane was not a man given to emotional outbursts. He was a stone-faced veteran of the Bureau, a man who had dismantled cartels and hunted serial killers. But as he watched the monitor, the veins in his neck were bulging. Rewind that, Kane ordered. The analyst, a young tech wizard named Kira, tapped her keyboard. The footage on the screen reversed. It showed the officer, Hale, leaning into the Malibu. It showed the glint of the plastic bag in his hand before it disappeared under the seat. "He planted it," Kira said, her voice disgusted. "Clear as day. We have him on 4K resolution." "Where is Agent Voss?" Kane asked, his voice low and dangerous. GPS puts her phone in the precinct parking lot, but her biometric watch, which she's still wearing, shows her heart rate is elevated. She's stationary, likely in a holding cell. Kane stood up. He adjusted his suit jacket. He looked around the room at the agents of the Public Corruption Task Force. They were already gearing up. Vests were being strapped on. Assault rifles were being checked. This wasn't an investigation anymore. This was a rescue mission. "Listen up," Kane barked. "We have confirmation that a local police officer has kidnapped a federal agent and is currently fabricating evidence to frame her. This is a hostile situation." He paused, looking each agent in the eye. "We are rolling out. Air support is already en route. SWAT is mobilizing from the Baton Rouge field office. I want this precinct surrounded. No one leaves that building. No one enters. We are taking the entire department down." "Rules of engagement, boss?" one of the team leaders asked. Kane checked his weapon. "They are armed combatants who have taken a federal agent hostage. If they raise a weapon, you put them down. But I want the chief and that Officer Hale alive. I want them to see what happens when you touch one of us. Let's move." Back in Pine Creek, the sun had set. The station was quiet. Chief Quill was in his office, shredding documents. He had a bad feeling. He had tried to call the prosecutor, but the man hadn't answered. Downstairs, Hale was sitting at his desk, typing up the arrest report. He was feeling good. He had crafted a narrative that made him look like a hero. Suspect exhibited erratic behavior, detected odor of narcotics. Subsequent search revealed. He typed Serena Voss into the suspect name field. Suddenly, the lights in the station flickered. Hale looked up. "Nadia, what's with the power?" "Don't know," Nadia said from the dispatch booth. "Probably the storm coming in." Then the phone rang. Nadia picked it up. "Pine Creek Police. Emergency." She paused. Her face went pale. She stood up, the headset cord stretching. It's for you, Declan," she whispered. "Who is it?" Hale asked, annoyed. "He says he's the assistant director of the FBI." Hale froze. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. A cold chill went down his spine. "Hang up," Hale said. "It's a prank. Hang up." "I can't," Nadia cried. "He says, look outside." Hale stood up slowly. He walked to the front glass doors of the station. He looked out into the parking lot. He expected to see darkness. Instead, he saw a sea of red and blue strobe lights. It looked like an invasion. Dozens of black SUVs blocked every exit. An armored Bearcat vehicle was idling at the gate. A helicopter chopped the air above, its spotlight beaming down directly onto Hale, blinding him. A magnified voice boomed from a loudspeaker, shaking the glass of the station. "This is the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The building is surrounded. Exit the building with your hands above your heads. You have minutes." Hale stumbled back. He felt like he was going to throw up. "Chief!" he screamed, running toward the stairs. "Chief!" Quill ran out onto the landing, holding a shredded file. "What is that noise?" "They're here," Hale yelled. "The feds. They're everywhere." Quill ran to the window. He saw the army outside. He saw the snipers positioning themselves on the roof of the bakery across the street. He dropped the papers. They fluttered down the stairs like snow. "You idiot," Quill whispered. "You didn't just arrest an agent. You arrested the whole damn bureau." The phone on Hale's desk rang again and again and again. Every phone in the station started ringing simultaneously, a cacophony of terror. "Come out or we are breaching," the voice outside boomed. Hale looked at Quill. "What do we do? We have to fight them." Quill looked at Hale with pure hatred. "Fight them? That's the FBI. You don't fight them. You surrender and pray they don't shoot you." Quill unbuckled his gun belt. He let it drop to the floor with a heavy thud. "Open the door, Hale," Quill ordered, defeated. No. Hale panicked. He drew his gun. I'm not going to jail. I didn't do anything wrong. She lied. Put the gun down, Quill shouted. Hale turned and ran toward the back, toward the holding cells. He had a crazy idea. If he had her, he had a shield, a hostage. Hale, stop! Quill screamed. But Hale was already through the security door. He sprinted down the hallway to cell 4. He fumbled with his keys, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He unlocked the door and kicked it open, raising his gun. Get up! Hale screamed at Serena. Get up! You're walking me out of here! Serena was standing in the middle of the cell. She wasn't meditating anymore. She was smiling, a cold, predatory smile. Put the gun down, Declan, she said. It's over. Move! Hale shouted, stepping into the cell. Crash. The front doors of the station exploded inward as the FBI breaching team detonated the hinges. Flashbangs went off, filling the lobby with blinding light and deafening noise. FBI! Get down! Get down! The sound of boots thundering down the hallway was like a stampede. Hale turned his head for a split second, distracted by the noise. That was all Serena needed. She didn't need a weapon. She was the weapon. She lunged forward, grabbing the barrel of Hale's gun with her left hand and diverting it away from her body. With her right palm, she struck him violently under the chin, snapping his head back. Hale's finger tightened on the trigger. Bang! The shot went wild into the ceiling. Serena swept his legs, slamming him onto the concrete floor of the cell. She was on top of him instantly, her knee driving into his throat, pinning him. She wrenched the gun from his hand and tossed it into the hallway. Don't move, she hissed. Hale gasped for air, staring up at her. The arrogance was gone. The power was gone. All that was left was a terrified little boy. 3 agents in full tactical gear appeared in the doorway, rifles raised. Clear, the lead agent shouted. Agent secure, suspect down. Serena looked up at her team. Nice of you guys to drop by, she said. I was just teaching Officer Hale here about the consequences of profiling. Hale wheezed, tears streaming down his face. I'm sorry, I didn't know. Serena leaned down, her face inches from his. That's the problem, Declan. You shouldn't need to know who I am to treat me like a human being. But now the whole world is going to know who you are. Serena didn't blink. She didn't smile. He wasn't worth her anger anymore. He was just a memory. The silence inside the FBI transport van was absolute, a sharp contrast to the chaotic noise of the raid that had just dismantled the Pine Creek Police Department. Declan Hale sat in the back, his wrists shackled to a D-ring in the floor. He was still wearing his uniform, but it no longer felt like armor. It felt like a costume, a cheap polyester joke that he had been wearing while pretending to be a man. Opposite him sat Special Agent Martinez, a burly man with a thick beard and eyes that looked like they had seen the bottom of the ocean. Martinez didn't speak. He just watched Hale. He watched him sweat. He watched him tremble. Hours ago, he was the king of the highway. Hours ago, he was the king of the highway. He was the law. He had a pension, a girlfriend, a truck, and a reputation. Now he was chained to the floor of a federal vehicle heading toward the New Orleans field office. He thought about the bag of cocaine. He had planted it. He had touched it. His fingerprints were on the bag. But maybe he could say he found it. Maybe he could say he was moving it for safety. The lies swirled in his mind, desperate and fragmented. Don't hurt yourself thinking, Martinez said suddenly, his voice rumbling like gravel. We know about the impound lot. Hale's head snapped up, his eyes wide with panic. I was doing an inventory. That's standard procedure. Save it for the tape, Martinez said, looking away bored. You're going to need all your energy for the next 20 years. The processing center at the FBI field office was clean, sterile, and terrifyingly efficient. Unlike the filthy, chaotic booking room at Pine Creek, where Hale had reigned supreme, this was a machine. Hale was pulled out of the van. He was marched through a sally port where cameras tracked every inch of his movement. He saw other officers from his department, Ronan, Vance, even Sergeant Ridley, being led in handcuffs. It was a clean sweep. The entire shift had been gutted. "Face the wall," a processing agent ordered. "I'm a police officer," Hale whispered, the words tasting like ash in his mouth. "Professional courtesy." The agent laughed. It wasn't a mean laugh, it was a dismissive one. "You lost that courtesy when you kidnapped one of ours? Spread your feet." Hale was patted down. His belt was removed. His shoelaces were cut. His wallet, his keys, and the badge he had cherished, his own badge, were dropped into a plastic bag labeled evidence. Then came the moment that broke him. "Strip," the agent ordered. "What?" Hale stammered, clutching his shirt. "Strip. Standard procedure for new intakes. We need to check for contraband, and we need that uniform for evidence. We can't have you impersonating an officer in here." Hale stood there, shivering in the air-conditioned room as he unbuttoned the shirt he had ironed that morning. He took off the pants with the sharp crease. He stood naked, exposed, and vulnerable in front of strangers who looked at him with zero respect. He was handed an orange jumpsuit. It was scratchy, ill-fitting, and smelled of industrial detergent. He put it on. He zipped it up. He was no longer Officer Hale. He was inmate number. Hours later, Hale sat in interrogation room B. It was a small, soundproof box with a stainless steel table and 3 chairs. There was a two-way mirror on one wall, and Hale knew exactly who was behind it. The door opened. Declan Hale braced himself for a tough guy, a screamer, someone who would pound the table and demand answers. Instead, Serena Voss walked in. She looked different. The messy bun was gone, replaced by loose, sleek hair. The hoodie and jeans were gone, replaced by a sharp navy blue blazer and a crisp white blouse. She held a file folder in her hand. She didn't look angry. She looked professional. She looked untouchable. She sat down opposite him. She placed the folder on the table. She didn't open it. "Water?" she asked. Hale stared at her. He couldn't reconcile this woman with the person he had thrown onto the hood of a car. The power dynamic had shifted so violently, it made him dizzy. "I want a lawyer," Hale croaked. "You have one," Serena said calmly. "He's in the lobby reviewing the indictment. He'll be here soon, but I wanted to give you a chance to see the weather forecast before you decide whether to bring an umbrella." "I didn't do anything illegal," Hale said, reciting the lines he had rehearsed in his head. "I made a traffic stop. You were non-compliant. I detained you. I found drugs." Serena smiled. It was a terrifying smile because it was filled with pity. "Declan?" she said softly. "May I call you Declan? Since you called me sweetheart and honey all afternoon, I figure we're on a first-name basis." She opened the file. She pulled out a photo. It was a high-resolution glossy print. It showed Hale leaning into the Malibu. It showed the knife in his hand. It showed the bag of white powder. Hale's breath hitched. "How? We had a surveillance drone tracking my vehicle," Serena explained, as if she were teaching a class to a slow student. "High-altitude, military-grade optics. We saw you park. We saw you walk to the impound. We saw you cut the carpet. We saw you plant the evidence." She slid another photo across. This one showed Chief Quill handing him the bag in the office. "We also had a listening device in my key fob," Serena added. "We have audio of Chief Quill telling you to plant the drugs. We have audio of you agreeing to do it. We have audio of you asking if you should delete the body cam footage." Hale felt the room spinning. They had everything, every word, every movement. There was no wiggle room. "No," he said. That's entrapment," Hale whispered desperately. "No, Declan. That's investigation. Entrapment is if I forced you to commit a crime you wouldn't otherwise commit. I didn't make you a corrupt cop. You were already one. I just turned on the lights." Serena leaned forward, her eyes locking onto his. "Here is the situation. The U.S. Attorney is seeking a federal indictment for kidnapping, civil rights violations, conspiracy to distribute narcotics, and obstruction of justice. The kidnapping of a federal officer carries a maximum sentence of life in prison. The drug charge, that carries a mandatory minimum." Hale put his head in his hands. He began to sob. "My life is over." "Yes," Serena agreed. The life you knew is over, but you have a choice about what the next years look like. To stop you. He's trying to cut a deal to stop you. He's trying to cut a deal to save his pension. Hale's head snapped up, tears streaking his face. That liar. He gave me the coke. He told me to do it. He's trying to send me to prison for years. I know, Serena said, but juries love a chief. He's older. He's a pillar of the community. You're the young hothead with a history of excessive force complaints. Who do you think they'll believe? Hale felt a surge of rage. Quill was selling him out. After everything Hale had done for him, after all the dirty work. I want to talk, Hale said, his voice shaking with fury. I want to tell you everything. About today. About everything. Hale hissed. The asset forfeiture skimming, the protection money from the strip clubs on Route 10, the beatings he covered up. I have the ledger. I kept a copy on a flash drive in my apartment. Serena sat back. This was the gold mine. This was why she had endured the handcuffs and the humiliation. She wasn't just after Hale, she was after the rot in the system. Okay, Declan, she said, sliding a waiver form across the table. Your lawyer is walking in now. Sign this and let's start writing the history of Pine Creek. The fallout hit with the force of a hurricane. The morning after the raid, a trucker's dash cam video of the arrest went viral, showing a white officer manhandling a compliant black woman on the side of the highway. But the true nuclear option arrived when the Department of Justice released the drone footage. The entire country watched in high-definition horror as Officer Declan Hale pulled a bag of cocaine from his pocket, sliced open the carpet of the Malibu, and planted the evidence. The public reaction was immediate and volatile. Protests erupted outside the Pine Creek station, forcing the governor to suspend the entire police force. But for Declan Hale, the world had already shrunk to the size of a solitary confinement cell. His lawyer, Elara Voss, delivered the final betrayal. Quill pled out, she said, her face grim. He gave them the mayor and the corrupt judges. In exchange, he gets years. You're the face of this scandal, Declan. You're the bait, not the fish. They aren't offering a deal. Months later, the federal courthouse in Baton Rouge was packed. Serena Voss sat in the front row, right behind the prosecutor, her FBI badge now visible on her belt. Played the body cam audio, letting the jury hear the racism dripping from Hale's voice as he mocked Serena. Dispatcher Nadia took the stand, weeping as she testified that Hale's claim of smelling marijuana was a running joke in the department, code for an illegal search. Forensic experts confirmed the cocaine Hale planted had been stolen from the precinct's own evidence locker. Then Serena Voss took the stand. Agent Voss, Donovan asked, in your years with the Bureau, have you ever encountered an officer like the defendant? Serena turned and looked directly at Hale. He flinched, unable to meet her gaze. I have worked with cartels and organized crime families, Serena said, her voice steady. But I have never met a criminal who hid behind a badge with such arrogance. He didn't just break the law. He believed he was the law. When he realized his mistake, he didn't apologize. He decided to send me to prison just to avoid a reprimand. He looked me in the eye and told me I was nobody. The jury looked at Hale with stone-cold contempt. The deliberation took less than hours. When the jury returned, the silence in the courtroom was suffocating. We the jury, the foreman read, his hands shaking, find the defendant, Declan Thomas Hale, guilty on all counts. Guilty. Counts. Hale closed his eyes as a single tear escaped. Judge Valeria looked down over her spectacles, her expression withering. Mr. Hale, you have disgraced your uniform and betrayed the public trust. You utilized the power of the state to terrorize the very people you were sworn to protect. There is no greater crime in a civilized society than tyranny disguised as justice. The gavel slammed down with the finality of a coffin lid. I sentence you to years in a federal penitentiary. As U.S. Marshals hauled him roughly from his chair, Hale looked back desperately. He caught Serena's eye and mouthed, I'm sorry. Serena didn't blink. She didn't smile. He wasn't worth her anger anymore. He was just a memory. Goodbye, inmate, she whispered. Years later, the relentless Texas sun beat down on the exercise yard of the Beaumont Federal Correctional Complex. Declan Hale pushed a broom across the scorching concrete, keeping his head down. He was young, but looked older. His face bore the scar of a welcome beating, and his eyes were hollow. He wasn't Officer Hale anymore. He was inmate, or as the general population called him, the pig. Hale stole a glance at the guard tower. The officer up there held a rifle, looking bored behind dark sunglasses. A pang of jealousy, so sharp it was physical, hit Hale in the chest. That used to be him. He had held the power. Now he had to ask permission to use the bathroom. As he swept the dust, left, right, the truth finally settled in. This wasn't bad luck. It was the bill coming due. He had spent his life bullying those he thought couldn't fight back, until he picked a fight with the one woman who could. Thousands of miles away in Washington, D.C., Serena Voss walked into her new office. The plaque on the door read, Deputy Assistant Director, Internal Affairs Division. Her view overlooked the Capitol building, a stark contrast to the cage-holding Hale. A text buzzed on her phone from Agent Kane. Well deserved. Serena smiled. She thought about Declan Hale, not with anger, but with clarity. He was a living reminder of why she did this job. He proved that the badge isn't a crown. It's a shield, and if you use it as a sword, eventually you will fall on it. She sat at her cherrywood desk and opened a new file regarding a corrupt unit in Miami. Let's go to work, she whispered. Somewhere in Texas, a heavy steel door slammed shut, locking Declan Hale in the darkness he had built for himself. And there you have it, the rise and fall of Officer Declan Hale. It's a brutal reminder that arrogance is a loan you take out against your future, and eventually life comes to collect with interest. Serena Voss didn't just win a court case. She proved that dignity and truth are stronger than any badge or gun. If this story satisfied your need for justice, please mash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Share this video with someone who needs to see karma in action. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. I have more stories coming of real-life justice twists and karma that you won't want to miss. Thank you for watching. And remember, be kind because you never know who you're really talking to. See you in the next.